Terlingua recap, take one.
Hey guys, Mike Roberts, the Converse Cowboy. Here to give you a little recap from my Terlingua trip, the Hard Times Adventures. When this idea came to me, I told a few people about it, and they looked at me like I was crazy, you know? I mean, I'm going, the rules of this thing were to be there for 2 weeks. I only brought $50 with me. I did not have a place to stay. I did not know anybody. I had never been to this location before. You know, it was more of a calling than anything for me, you know, to put this challenge in front of myself, mainly for self-exploration, you know, to see what comes up mentally. And before I even left for the trip, like the mental chatter already started, you know. And then, of course, the outside influences, people asking me why I was going and then looking at me like I was fucking crazy and, you know, asking, is it safe? Are you sure you know what you're doing? The answer was no to both of those. I didn't know if it was safe at the time. I didn't know if I knew what I was doing, you know, but I felt called to do it. And that's something that I constantly do, right, is lean into challenges. At least that's my intention, you know, and that, to me, I think is where the personal growth lies. So going back to, you know, sitting down with Steven Pressfield and just reading his work from The War of Art and Turning Pro, you know, it's all about facing resistance. And the more you fear something, the more we resist something, that is an indication that we really need to lean into that more, you know, and really face whatever those fears are and whatever that resistance is. And so that's kind of where I was at with it, you know, anxious, excited, of course, all of those things. But there was a little bit of resistance in the back of my head, you know, and then especially whenever I got there was a number of things that came up that I think by human nature, by default, like we want to take the easy route, and the resistance was real, you know, and so that kind of used that as a guide to, you know, the things I did and the things that I had to overcome. So why Terlingua? Why this really a no-name town in Southwest Texas? I had never heard of Terlingua, Texas, but a town that was close to there, Marfa, Texas, was on my radar. And it's a place that I just wanted to go visit, you know, for a vacation. And so the idea came to me, you know, for this challenge. And I was thinking of places like outside of Nashville, maybe Colorado, other parts of Texas. But one day, just meditating, the idea came to me. It was like somewhere around Marfa. And so I got on Google and Google Maps, and I looked up that area, and I saw Big Bend National Park. And then right there, it's like it just jumped out at me. It said Terlingua. And so I did more research on that. And it is an old mining town. It, you know, really not many people live there. You know, after going and experiencing it, it is a very touristy place now. It has been found. And it's one of those places people go to get away, you know, get off the grid. They go there to not be found. Very limited phone service, limited internet service. I see why. I mean, it's like no place I had ever seen before. So the journey begins, right? It's like, how do I get there? So I booked a plane ticket and flew into Midland, Texas, which is about 4 hours away from Terlingua. And once I got there, I caught a ride from Uber. And, you know, on the ride down, I mean, shit, it was 4 hours with this lady. And I told her about my adventure that I was going on, you know. And like everybody else that I spoke with, she looked at me in the rearview mirror like I was fucking crazy. And she's like, are you sure you know what you're doing, you know? And so 4 hours of this, every so often, she would ask, are you sure you know what you're doing? Like, I'll take you back. It's not a problem. Like, I'll take you back. And I would tell her, I'm like, no, you're missing the point. Like, that I'm putting this challenge in front of myself for the growth. That is my why behind this trip. Hell, that's my why behind the Converse Cowboy, you know, is to lean into the uncomfortable. And so even whenever I got there, right, like I get out, and as I'm getting my bags, she leans out the window and she's like, are you sure you know what you're doing? Like, I'll take you back. And I'm like, lady, I don't know what I'm doing. No, but what I need to do. And so my feet hit the ground in Terlingua. That's when my $50 starts. I don't have a place to stay. It's about 6:30 that evening, and so there's a little bit of daylight left. But my game plan was, this is all I had planned for the trip, was to go into the bar. I knew the Starlight Theater was there. It's a well-known bar down there, restaurant. I just wanted to go get a beer and talk to some of the locals, bartenders, managers, some of those people. And my words verbatim were, to the bartender that I met there was, "Where can I sleep tonight and not get stabbed?" And so I told him I was low on funds. I didn't have a place to stay. Where can I sleep tonight and not get stabbed? And so he told me about a little fire pit that was a few hundred yards away from the restaurant. And that was home for the night, and still somewhat excited about the journey, not knowing what to expect. So that's where I went. I had my little suitcase, my backpack, and my guitar. That's all I brought with me. And so I'm lugging that around, and I go set up in this fire pit. It's probably like high 30s, low 40s. And it was kind of nice. Like the fire pit was sunken down, so I was out of the wind. It took me a little while to fall asleep that night. There were still people at the restaurant. There were people rummaging around. I'm worried that people are going to come down. That was one thing the bartender told me. His name was Rustin. And he said, whatever you do, just don't start a fire. You don't want to draw attention to yourself. Sometimes people go down there and party and hang out. And so I'm worried about that. I'm worried about people finding me out, staying down here. And so at some point, I did finally drift off to sleep. And I don't know, about 4 o'clock in the morning, I woke up to coyotes howling. And that's nothing I've never heard before. But usually when I hear them, I'm inside. And so they seemed like they were a little bit closer this time than they ever were before, And so then I drifted off asleep again. And then I'm woken up by people smoking cigarettes. I didn't know what the fuck was going on, but they're smoking cigarettes a few hundred feet from me. And so I didn't go back to sleep. I'm shaking. I'm so cold, yeah, I'm down in this fire pit and it's less cold, but I have no blanket. I have no tent. I am out in the elements. So I'm steady pulling clothes out of my suitcase just to try to stay warm, So I make it through the first night. I wake up and there's really not many people around anymore. The night before, this place was packed. There's cars everywhere. And then I wake up the next day and it's kind of cool out and nobody's around. And so the point of this journey was to document, each day what my thoughts are, what I'm going through, what my expectations are, and then also what I've learned, And so I decided to do my first vlog. Hey guys, Mike Roberts, the Converse Cowboy. So I made it down to this remote location sometime yesterday and got into town and yeah, I guess the best way to say it is my ego got bitch slapped. I didn't really know what to expect when I got here, not knowing anybody in this little town, and it was humbling, right? It was very humbling to be in a place and not know anybody and have a very limited amount of resources, money, and to not be able to do the things I'm used to doing. So I got in town and I went into the local bar here and met some people and just kind of got a lay of the land. Where the question I asked was, where can I sleep tonight and not get stabbed? And so they told me about a little place not too far from the bar. And so it was the first night in my life that I've ever slept underneath the stars. And so it was, I'll say it was cool, kinda. It got cold, it wasn't unbearable, but it wasn't comfortable either. But it's a cool little town. There's plenty of scenery. I'll show you guys. I'll walk over here and show you mi casa. I'm gonna roam around town a little bit more today and hopefully meet some more people and try to line up some type of work of some kind. I don't necessarily want a job, but it would be nice to make a little bit of money to at least be able to find a place to stay so I don't have to stay here anymore. It's kind of nice because it's sunk down on the ground a little bit, so I got to get out of the wind. But again, like when I woke up to coyotes howling, and it sounded like they were just right outside, only feet away. But and then woke up to tourists touring through here and coming around, and so yeah, I'm just kind of taking it all in right now. I'm trying to just process everything that's happening and then come up with a game plan, because I came into this thing with no expectations. Like, I didn't have a game plan past day one. And so today I'm gonna go explore a little bit more through this little town, and we'll just see what happens. We'll see what happens and see who I meet and what those conversations may lead to. But I've been journaling and writing all this stuff down, but I thought it was interesting. Like, as soon as I got here, I was like, what the fuck have I done? So I'll keep you guys in a loop. Until next time, stay grateful. So sleeping outside in a fire pit, there is no, they come to find out they don't have electrical outlets. So my phone's dead. So my goal is I need to try to meet some people, get my phone charged up so I can continue to document what I have going on. I've got all kinds of mental chatter going already, like that first night. It was, like I said, it was very surreal, and it was a bitch slap to my ego, and like I'm already thinking like throw in the towel, or like how can I try to find a place to stay, but I have no money. Like I had $50, and when I got there, the happy hour was going, so beers were $2.75, and then they jumped to $5, and when you're down to 50, like that means a lot, So, this mental chatter's going, and so I have to consciously lean on like the practices that I do in my everyday life, the gratitude practices. I have to start thinking about reframing my mind, recalibrate, instead of getting caught up in the worry and in the fears. And because that's the other thing, I'm 80 miles from the nearest hospital, so these thoughts are going through my head. What if something happens? Like I have no vehicle, I have no way to get anywhere. So I start trying to come up with a game plan, right? Like, what do I want to do? What do I need to do? I need to make some money. I need to get some income coming in while I'm here. And so I start talking to some of the locals. I go to the coffee shop that morning after I finish the vlog and get some coffee and just kind of hang out. And mind you, like I'm toting all my shit around like a homeless person, and these people are looking at me like I'm crazy, toting my suitcase and my backpack and guitar through this little coffee shop. But so I start thinking, okay, what can I do for money? I knew there was the jewelry store was there in Ghost Town, the coffee shop, and then the restaurant. That was really it. So I go to the jewelry store. And I get my phone charged up there. There's a really nice guy working there. Enrique, I believe was his name. And so I asked him, like, where can I get some work? I'm only here for a few weeks, but I'm short on funds. I need some money. And so he lets me charge my phone. He lets me keep all of my shit there on the porch of the jewelry store. And so I strike out down the road to go visit with some river rafting tours to try to find some work. I get there, I tell them my story. I'm here for a few weeks. I don't have much money, but I'll do anything. Like I'll wash your boats. I'll go on the river tours. I'll do anything just to make a little bit of money. And they looked at me and they're like, no, we don't need any extra help right now. You may want to try so-and-so, another river rafting company. So I'd go in there and same deal. Like I kept getting rejected over and over and over. And so I just go back and I sit on that jewelry store porch, and I just start playing my guitar and just kind of thinking like, what's my next step? So Terlingua is known, like it's known for the Starlight Theater, and then there's this big long porch where either local musicians play or whoever's playing at the Starlight that weekend will go and sit and play and make a little money. They'll, people out there, tourists passing through will buy them beers. And so I heard the music going, and so I went over there and wanted to check it out. So secretly, like in my head, like that's why I brought my guitar. Like from doing the research, I knew that about this little town. And so like secretly, I think that's what I really wanted to do to make my money while I was there, do some busking, So I go watch these guys on the porch, and they're badass, right? I mean, they're professional musicians, and so I am very hesitant to bring my guitar over and start playing. I'm just kind of soaking it in, kind of sitting in the shadows, watching all of this. And I think most of those guys are from Austin. Those musicians were from Austin, and I'm just thinking, like, man, there's no way I can do that. Kind of beating myself up about it, judging myself, because I mean, I can play some chords on the guitar, but I'm not a musician. I'm very amateur, and more like a campfire type player. So I left the porch and I went back and I played my guitar on the other little porch, like nobody's around, it's just me. By this time, it's getting close to the jewelry store is going to close at 5, and I had the whole time, like that day, I'm kind of scoping out different places, like where can I stay tonight, and they have a bunch of ruins there. There's just some like old adobe type stuff, and I remember talking to the jewelry store, one of the guys running it that day. And I saw a little place like behind their store, and it was secluded, like, because there's tourists pouring in at this point. And I'm like, hey, do you mind, like, if I just stay back there tonight? I don't have any money to get a place. And he's like, no. He's like, I tell you what, you can just stay on the front porch. He's like, you can just stay on the front porch. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Because it was kind of blocked off, like, with some stone, stone floor, stone walls. And so I rearranged their inventory that was on the porch to like make me a little barricade so nobody could really see me sleeping over there. So that's where I stayed that night, and I had electricity, so I was able to charge my phone. But it was cold. Like, it was still cold that night. I thought it was going to be warmer, but I think that night was colder than the other one. And rock is harder than dirt, and come to find out. And so like I'm tossing and turning. Didn't sleep at all that night, and the whole time, like, the mental chatter hasn't stopped. Like, I'm just steadily trying, my mind's turning, how do I come out of this, right? Because my money's dwindling, I have no money coming in. So the next day I wake up, I'm on the porch, and same thing, like all the cars in the parking lot are gone. I'm sitting there pretty much alone, and cold. I go to the coffee shop, I get some coffee, and I start journaling, and I'm writing and do a little bit of reading. And then I see there's one van in that parking lot in front of the Starlight. And I recognize the guy over there. It was the musician that was playing on the porch the day before. And so I remember writing about like 20 seconds of courage. Like, sometimes that's all it takes to really change our direction, to change our path, to change our life. And so that was the most important 20 seconds of my entire trip, because that changed the path of the rest of my journey there in Terlingua. And so I go over and I introduce myself to this guy. He was sitting in his van writing, tell him what I'm doing there. I'm on this journey and I'm short on funds, and just get to, I talk to him and hear his story and what he's doing there, and why he came to Terlingua. And so we get to talking a little bit more, and I found out he was going to be playing on the porch again that day. And so I very hesitantly invited myself to play with him. I'm like, look, man, I'm nowhere near as good as you. I saw you yesterday, love your sound. And but I'd love to come play with you, just sit in with you. And he welcomed me. He's like, yeah, come up. I'll be up there around noon. And so I was like, sweet. I'm gonna go down to Lejitas, which was about 10, 15 miles away. So I strike out to go try to find some work. At this point, I was down to $11, and that is a shitty feeling, knowing you don't have anything coming in. And so again, like, I'm willing to do anything. And I found out about this horseback riding tour place that goes through Big Bend, from the jewelry store guy. And so that's why I'm going to Lejitas. And so I get, like, I don't know, this is my first time hitchhiking, by the way, because again, I have no wheels. And so I get a mile down the road, and this feeling kept coming to me about needing to go back to Ghost Town. And so I keep walking, though, my thumb's in the air, nobody's stopping to pick me up. And I get about 2 miles at this point, and it's starting to get pretty hilly, and I'm like, man, what the fuck am I doing? Like, yeah, I need money, but something back there, I need to go back there for something. And so I turned around. And when I got back into the ghost town, I saw Leo was getting his guitar out. Leo DeSanto was the musician I was speaking with, by the way, in the van. And he was going to set up on the porch. And so I was like, there's what I need to do. I have all of this resistance and fear because I play guitar by myself, and I've played in front of people before, but it's, I don't know, this is a new area. This is a professional guy. Like, it's not a comfortable thing for me. And so very reluctantly grab my guitar and I go set up on the porch with him. Again, like that was the turning point of the trip, and so Leo and I are sitting there, some tours start coming in, and he's playing, and then I'll play one, which was really cool to have him there. Like, he was somewhat of like my training wheels to busking, to have him there. He played the harmonica as well. And so it was just a cool vibe, a cool time, a very cool experience that, had I tried to go get a job, like had I followed through, I don't know what would have happened, down the road, but I feel like that's where I needed to be, was on that porch playing. And so we sat there for hours, and people came through, and I was meeting people and hearing other folks' story, like where they're from, what they're doing there. And Leo and I made, I don't know, I think it was around $40 that day, and we split it. It was very kind of him to split the money with me. And so $20, and I can remember walking away with that $20 in my guitar case, and that was a really cool feeling. I remember a smile just came on my face. I'm in real estate investing, and I've sold houses for a good chunk of money, but that $20 felt different. Like, it felt so fucking cool to be able to make money playing music. And so I met up with Leo after that, and we grabbed a beer, and he needed to go to Lajitas for something. He needed to go to the store. And so I told him, what I was doing, and that I was still looking for work, and so he offered to give me a ride. And so we get to the first place, and they weren't hiring. Come to find out, it was actually I showed up to the wrong place. And so we got back in the van and went to another horseback place, and come to find out that was the wrong place. And so then we had to go back to another place called Studi Butte, which is on the other side of Ghost Town. And the whole time Leo and I are just chatting, and I'm hearing his journey and his story and what it's like to be a musician on the road, and to be a up-and-comer and just the grind of it all, And so we get to this other place, and it's more of like a general store, like a grocery store, and they have fresh food and just anything you would really want compared to where I was at, And I don't have any money. I can't buy anything. So I'm just kind of walking through the store as he shops for food. And I see this sleeping bag. And I'm like, oh shit, sleeping bag. Hell yeah, that's what I need. And then I tell Leo, I'm like, hey man, they got sleeping bags here. Like, do you think they got a tent? And he's like, oh, I'm sure they do. And so look a little bit more, and we find a tent. And so Leo helped me get the tent. He helped me get the sleeping bag while I was there. And man, I'm feeling good. I got $20 extra in my pocket. I got a place to stay now that is going to keep me warm. And so on the way back, he's like, look, man, I've been where you're at before. And he's like, I know it's hard. He's like, I'm going to make you dinner tonight if you're up for it. And I was like, well, fuck yeah. I've been living on this elk jerky that Carrie Kelly gave me before I left. Thank you, Carrie. And because it sure came in handy, And so we had dinner that night. And let me back up. While we were playing on the porch, there was a local that was there. He's Mark the Fiddler, and he invited us down to the community garden where the locals gather and play every Sunday. So before we went down to the community garden, I got my tent set up, and somewhat of a challenge to find a place to put it. I had it set up there in Ghost Town, and but I couldn't set it up where people could see it, because the little local sheriff there would have ran me out. So I had to I found one of the little ruins that was walled up. It's all four sides was walled up with some doorways into it. And like I had to move these big boulders and rocks out of the way to keep my, to make the ground flat. And so, man, that was such a cool feeling though. Like I was able to move my shit in. I had a residence, I had a place to keep my stuff. And it was just a cool feeling to be able to get that set up and know that I didn't have to sleep outside again that night. So the next day, Leo, from meeting those musicians, kept him there longer that day. So he stayed another day and was going to play on the porch again. And so noon came and he went up, I went up, and we started playing again. And I think we made around $20 that day again, and I'm starting to think at this point, fuck trying to get a job. Like, this is what I'm going to do from now on while, for the rest of my stay. Like, I'm having a blast doing it. People are feeding us beers, and I'm getting to meet a lot of people, locals. I'm getting to meet other tourists that are coming through. There's new people coming every single day, and they're having fun, right? Like, I could not have picked a better place, or I should say a better place could not have picked me, because that place was set up to do just what I really wanted to do, was to play some music and make a little money and lean into some hard times. So at some point while Leo and I were talking, I told him about the Converse Cowboy and the podcast that I have going, and he mentioned to me that he just started a podcast. So later that night, Leo asked me to come on his podcast, and I thought it was cool. We recorded the podcast right there in that fire pit where I slept the first night. And I don't know, it's 45 minutes, an hour long, and it was just a conversation, and some deep shit. And what I thought was cool, I was like, Leo, like we've been hanging out for 2 days, but we haven't had a conversation like this until now. We got into some deep stuff. And, I think that's what's cool about the Converse Cowboy is it allows me the platform to have real conversations with people, where there's undivided attention on both sides, like no distractions. We're in a conversation. And I definitely felt it that night. I mean, the stars were out. It was nighttime. It was pitch black dark. And it was just a beautiful night in Terlingua and a really cool conversation with him. And he's a guy that I've stayed in contact with, and I believe will be a friend for a long time to come. Okay, so the next day I wake up, and all the while, like, I'm having to consciously remind myself while I'm here, There were some things that I realized I was attached to that I didn't know going in, and identity was one of those. I'm put in this place, I put myself in this place where nobody knows me. Like, I have no money, like, I have nothing that I've spent my life building. I have none of that. And so, like I said before, it was like a bitch slap to my ego, and it was needed, it was definitely needed. And that was why I was there, to uncover the things that I didn't even know were going through my head. But that was something that came up that next day. I was just trying to remember, release all attachments, release all attachments to any identity that I may have, and just see what happens. And come to find out, that's a pretty damn good game plan, just by showing up on the porch. So I go to the porch the next day. Now I have no training wheels. Leo's gone. I'm there by myself. But just by showing up, like, that was half the battle. Showing up, introducing myself to Leo, going on the porch with him those first few days. Now I'm on my own. I'm glad to have had him there for those first few days, but now it was what's the next uncomfortable step? I got comfortable playing with him. And so that's something I think I've always known, but it really got magnified there. It's like, keep finding the next uncomfortable thing, And so here I am by myself. I have very few songs. I took some advice from the last Knife Fighter. I asked him, what advice do you have for me busking on this trip? And he said, man, you need about 20 songs. Or he said, man, you need about 20 songs. And so that's what I did. I went and practiced up and got some songs down, and I could half-ass play some of them, some I would forget, but I was there doing it, and all the while I had a smile on my face, and I think that's what translates most, People are there, these tourists are coming through just for the experience, for the feeling of being in Terlingua, to see a guy sitting on the porch playing guitar. And there were way more people that walked behind my guitar case and did not drop money in than those that did, but it didn't matter to me. I didn't care. I think I made like $25 that night or that day. I think I'd play around, at that time I was playing from like 12 to 3. And so I made around $25, and man, I'm feeling good. So going back to showing up, right? So while I'm sitting there playing, there's a few locals around, and I get to talking to some of them. And one of the guys, his name was Richie, and he was a manager at a place called the High Sierra out by the highway. And man, we had a really cool conversation and got into some philosophy talk, and really was digging his mindset on certain things. And told him, I was there for a few weeks and been short on some funds, and I was trying to find a job, and but I'm really liking this porch thing and playing the guitar. I think that's what I'm gonna do from now on. And anyway, he's like, dude, if you need some money, he's like, just come down to the High Sierra tonight, and you can either bust tables or wash dishes, and for a little bit of money. And by this time, like, I'd been making $25 a day, so I kind of turned my nose up at the washing dishes thing, and so he's like, well, shit, man. He's like, nobody's playing down there tonight. Just pack up your guitar and come down around 6, and you can set up and play down there. And he understood it. Richie got it. Like, I don't know if he realized that I was limited on songs, but he's like, dude, look, play your songs for like 45 minutes. A new wave of people are going to come in when those leave, and you can play your songs again. And he's like, I'll give you a meal and all the beer you want. And I'm like, fuck yeah. Actually, I was like, because I'm kind of hesitant, because this is a different deal, This is a different deal because now it's more structured. Like, there's people that are going to be sitting there, and it's almost like an audience, On the porch, people are kind of coming and going, but these people are there, And so there's a little bit more pressure, but I said, yeah, and by the end of the talk, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's do it. And so, so I go down there and I play. I set up, and there were some people there. Again, like, that was what was so cool about this trip, man. I got to meet so many people, and I'd start playing my songs, and nobody got up and left, which was one of my fears, Nobody got up and left. They were constantly asking, like, you know any Billy Joel, or you know any David Allan Coe? And of course I didn't. And but every now and then somebody would request something that I did know, and that was a cool feeling. And so I made around $100 that night, and I got fed, and I drank some beers, and it was a good time, really good time. And like, this wave I'm on just steadily keeps getting a little bit better every single day. And it goes back to just showing up. Like, that is what kept coming back to me. Just show up and let go, like surrender, and that's another thing that came up for me, was balance. The balance of pushing and showing up, and then also letting go, like letting go of any expectation, letting go of any attachment to any expectation. That was an important lesson that was learned on this trip. So it was a cool end to the day. Okay, next day I wake up, I still wearing the same clothes that I got there in. Like, that's a real thing. And I still have not had a shower. And but now my mind is made up. Like, fuck a job. That's out the window. Like, I'm doing this thing. I'm sitting on the porch. Like, no questions asked. Like, that's where I'm going from noon to 3 o'clock, And so that's what I did. I met a guy there that day. He was another local, Mark the welder. Really cool guy, but something I learned, like, just from meeting Mark, like, he was there the day before, but I didn't say anything to him. And I don't know if it was through journaling or meditating that morning, but like, something that came to me was like, man, say hello to everybody. Like, be the first person to speak to people, not in a creepy way, but like in a genuine way, And so I saw him. Mark went in and got his 6-pack and sat on the porch, and I just started up a conversation with him. And so glad I did. Come to find out, he's the guy that brought me to the train station on the last day. He's the guy that recommended I take the train out of Alpine. I didn't even know there was a train there. And just a cool guy. Got to hear his story and how he got to Terlingua and what he's got going there. So during that conversation, we're into the same music. He's requesting some stuff that I do know, and I introduced him to the Last Knife Fighter, the guy that lets us use his music for this show, you know, and so Last Knife Fighter's got a new fan now just from that conversation, you know. So one thing I realized while I was there, right? So this is a simulation. I'm there for 2 weeks. I'm not a real musician. I'm not busking for real. But what that did for me by doing that and sitting out there for hours at a time, man, I have so much respect. I have so much appreciation for those musicians that are doing that full time. And some of those guys, like some professional musicians, would come through from time to time, you know, whether it was during the day or that evening, and they would play, and whether they were just passing through, or whether they were trying to make a buck, regardless, man, like, they're grinding it out, and I have so much respect for those guys. You know, at this point, I'm thinking, man, I've got enough money. Maybe I can get a place. You know, maybe I can get a hotel room. Maybe I can buy a meal. And that night, I went to the Starlight, and I had an antelope burger, and I had dessert, and I had some beers, and it felt good. And I'm tipping the bartender more money than I actually have to give away, like more money than I'm comfortable with giving away, you know. But I do that in real life, and I think it reciprocates. You know, giving definitely reciprocates. And I did that on day 2 with that Enrique guy at the jewelry store. Man, I gave that guy $10, and I didn't have $10 to give away. But in my head, I knew it would come back, and that's not why I give. I don't give with the expectation of it coming back, but it's just the way it works. It's the law of reciprocity. You know, it comes back to you. So again, showing up consistently, you know, the compound effect will take over at some point. And so that is another lesson that came to me. It's something I've known, but being there, everything is magnified. You know, when there's limited funds, limited resources, everything seemed to be magnified for me. And so that was another thing that came up for me. Show up with consistency and good shit will happen. I remember my conversation with Daniel Donato, and you know, he was telling me when he was 15, he was out busking, and his first day out, he didn't make any money, $0. And the next day he went out, he had a sign that said he's saving up to buy a Telecaster, and he made $500. And so marketing is real. And so I remembered that, you know, the next day I went out and played. So I made a sign that said, I'm saving up for a meal and a beer at the Starlight. And ironically enough, I did. I made a little bit more money that day. And so when I saw the power of that, I was like, well, shit, maybe I can take it a step further. So I plant money in my guitar case. I planted a $5, a $10, and a $20 bill. I couldn't have done that on day 3 because I didn't have a fucking 20 to put in my case. But so I saw the power of perception firsthand. Like the very first song I played, I opened my guitar case, the money's in there that I planted, and this guy walks up with 2 $1 bills in his hand, and he looks down in my case, and he's about to put the money in, and he sees those other bills, and he reaches back in his pocket and gets a $5 bill out and puts it in. And man, I just thought that was so cool, you know, like that just proves perception is our reality, you know, like I saw it firsthand, and I'm still playing, like, but I'm like giggling on the inside that this shit actually worked, you know, and it's in everyday life. Like we may not even realize it, but it is a real thing. So this little coffee shop I would go to, man, they had the best playlist, right? And like it would change the vibe of that whole coffee shop. And like I'd been hearing it for a few days, but then it finally hit me. I'm like, damn, man, music is powerful. Like it has the power to change a mood. It has the power to change a room, you know, the people in it. And I experienced that on the porch, you know, playing. Like the vibe that was on that porch, like everybody was there to have a good time. Like it was just a cool vibe, and the music added to it, you know. And so what I thought about, you know, in those moments was like, damn, I want to get better at this stuff. I want to be able to play along with these other musicians, you know. And so while I'm there, I'm like, you know, when I get back, when I get back home, I'm going to set up some lessons, you know, and not just with any local guy, not with any local guitar player. I was like, I'm going to the top. So I got some lessons set up with Daniel Donato himself, Nashville star, Daniel Donato. And so that'll be coming up. I'm really looking forward to improving my skills on the guitar and just being able to hang out with him a little bit more is always fun. So I'm looking forward to that. And I don't know how long it would have taken for me to take those steps without this trip, and that's what was cool. This trip, I documented everything along the way, and I tried to get very still. I tried to get my mind very still, and that was something that was conscious because my mind was racing, especially early on in this thing. The default negative chatter was coming up, and I had to get my mind real still. And that's one thing that kept coming to me was just slow down, slow your mind down, and let the lessons come, and learn, not to dismiss any of it, but to really soak everything in and feel all the feels. That's something that I don't try to not do, but I dismiss that stuff, I guess, in everyday life, because I don't know, it's kind of how I cope with some things. Like, I just kind of brush some shit off. But this trip, one of my intentions was to really let myself feel all of the feels, the good, the bad, the bliss, the shit, whatever came up. Like, I just wanted to experience all of it. So again, guys, like, this Terlingua trip, it is a simulation, right? But I feel like it's a great metaphor for everyday life. The things that we go through, the things that we're social conditioned to, the things that we are programmed to think, And like I said, everything there for me was exposed by having the limited resources, by not having much money. Everything was exposed. Everything was magnified for me. And that goes both ways, the good and the bad. So anything that we do in this life, and again, this is my experience. This is what I've learned. I'm not a guru. I'm not telling you how to live your life or what to do. But anything new, it's going to suck, right? Like, there is going to be this growing pain, especially early on. There's going to be a lot of resistance. There's going to be a lot of fear. Once we get over that, though, it's like what was once uncomfortable becomes comfortable. The only way to keep growing is to find the next uncomfortable, and so that's what I'm searching for always. And the lessons from this trip, man, there were so many. And, one thing in particular, I had to ask myself, like, what is the next uncomfortable step for me in real life? And for me, I've been dipping my toe in the Converse Cowboy waters, and the next uncomfortable thing for me is to do it a little more full-time, less part-time. So I'm going to be going to Fort Worth 1 week out of the month to do interviews. Now that the COVID restrictions are gone, I'll be set up there at the Schaefer Outfitter store in the stockyards, doing more in-person interviews. And so that is something that's uncomfortable for me because it's different from my routine, to go to Fort Worth for a week out of the month. And it may turn into 2 weeks, it may turn into 3 weeks. That's something I'm going to let the universe tell me what I need to be doing, But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it because I know that's where the growth lies, because that is the next uncomfortable thing. And so my challenge to you is I invite you to seek out your own challenges. Whatever it is that you're fearing, whatever it is that you are resisting, lean into that shit. Lean into it hard. I was journaling the other day about it, and it's like, my fears and resistance are now my guide. Like, that kind of directs me on which way I need to be going. So I'd like to take a minute to thank anybody and everybody that I met along this journey, this hard times adventure that helped me in any way, whether we had a conversation, whether you donated money into my guitar case, whether you gave me a ride. None of it went unnoticed, and I'm so grateful for all of it. And I believe I asked every single person that helped me, do you believe in karma? Because my intention was I kept a list. I kept a running list of everybody that helped me. I got their name, their social media, or their phone number. I sent them a little care package, some Converse Cowboy gear, some got money, and a thank you card. They all got a thank you card, and I just wanted to let those guys know, man, it meant more than they knew. Those care packages were a thank you. That was just my way of saying thank you for being you, for being just a genuine human being. And it meant more than you know. So guys, this trip, Hard Times Adventure, was fun. It sucked. It was good. It was bad. Like, it was all of the things. Will there be another one? Most likely. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna let this one marinate for a little bit. I'm still integrating back into my everyday life. And that's the thing. Like, these lessons are still coming to me from that trip, from that experience. And so I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I went on this trip. I'm glad I'm able to share it with all of you guys. Hopefully it resonates with some of you and in your life. And until next time, stay grateful.